So I'm glad you're here. In a minute, I'm going to share with you the mess I made of my life and my marriage. I look back at that time and I go, man, I actually call it my chance to be insane. That comes from one of my favorite songs. I had this opportunity to feel what it feels like to lose myself, to be totally out of control and inconsistent with the man I wanted to be. I had the opportunity to come back from that and find myself again. As I share my story, if it connects to you, I invite you to fill out the application. I'll take a look at it and get in touch with you. And let's have a conversation about where you are and where you want to go. And because of my journey, both walking my own path, rebuilding my marriage, and striving to become the man I am today, and my journey as a therapist, I'm confident you can get where you want to go. So let me take you back to the beginning. 13 years ago, I fell in love. And it's more amazing than life's ever been. I've dated other people, but this is different. This girl fulfills me. I feel like she feels like she won the lottery. She would say things like, nobody's ever treated me so good. I feel so lucky to have you. And that made me feel so good inside, right? So we decided to get married. And pretty early on, we start having these struggles. And it took a little while before I realized it, but I didn't know how to do this marriage thing. I loved her, but nobody had trained me how to meet a woman's needs, how to understand them, how to express my needs. So we'd fight about them. We'd fight about a lot of things, but primarily sex. And it's not that we weren't having it. I just couldn't feel wanted. I couldn't capture that feeling of coming through for her. And I kept seeking that. I want to feel like I did when you felt amazing because of me. And eventually I made the mistake of going to the internet, searching for answers. Now, I'd struggled with pornography as a boy, and I'd had quite a bit of sobriety before we got married. But I went to the internet searching for how to help my wife want me more sexually. And the things that came up started to awaken those feelings in me, and I went down a path of a pornography addiction. I never wanted it, and I'd always try to stop and not go back. In addition to the pornography, I was angry. We were fighting often. I was also insecure. I got to a spot where I couldn't look other men in the eyes. I couldn't sit in front of a camera like I am right now and tell men all my struggles. I couldn't look these men in the eyes because I was afraid they'd see how worthless I was. The cool thing now is I can sit here and I don't feel anything because I know that's not who I am anymore. And what I'm excited about is for you to get there too. You've made mistakes. They don't define you. Mine don't define me. I'm not that man anymore. And that's never who I really was. Who I am now is a man that knows how to come through for his wife and kids. I know how to create connection and love, and I know how to keep us happy. But during those times, man, it progressed to some pretty ugly places. I could go on story, but, there was a time where I thought I had this clear vision. You're even going to have to go way more numb. You're going to have to turn to drugs and alcohol and all sorts of things to numb the pain of losing this woman's heart, of losing this family, of not being able to see, at this point I had a little boy, not being able to see your little boy on a daily basis because you got a divorce. And I knew that I'd go down that path, anything to get more numb. So I made this decision. I'm going to fight for my life and for my marriage, whatever it takes. I'm going to do it. And that's what I've done over the past 8 years. I don't know a single person that's done more than I have in the name of taking back my life. I even became a therapist. And as a therapist, I was able to become the director of a few clinics. And one of my primary roles was figuring out better treatment to help couples heal from some of these challenges. I've been able to train with some of the best therapists in the world. I'm trained as a couples therapist, an addiction therapist, a trauma therapist. I'm trained by neuroscientists on how the brain works, how emotions play into it, how the chemicals dump, all these things. And we started to be really effective in the clinics I worked in. We started to really see, hey, here's a path for people to get out of whatever the depth is. Not everybody watching this, not all of you are struggling with addiction. Maybe it's depression, maybe it's anxiety. All these things are symptoms of deeper things. And what I started to realize in my work is if we get to one specific thing first, everything gets better much more rapidly. Now for me, I remember I was kind of awakened to this idea early, and a therapist, he said, "You're an addict. You can't even understand that yet." And so I stopped going down that route. I started focusing more on addiction recovery than recovering who I really am. So we kept doing this work in the clinics I was at, and I started to realize that my journey was too slow. It didn't have to be this hard. I, like many of you, was seeking, and just not getting what I needed. So I kept seeking, and eventually I found the different pieces that helped me get where I wanted to go. I started to share these with my clients and help them. They were healing much more quickly than it was for me and my wife. But it was still too slow. And I started to think, hey, what if this would make it faster? What if this thing would make it faster? What if we did this? And I decided it was time for me to take a real hard look at what things really mattered in my own healing. And let me just share, none of you have been more of a mess than me. Some of you might rival it, fine. I've never worked with a single man that's been more of a mess than I was. I was a mess. I was broken. I was lost. And I came back from that. And I found myself again. You can do it too. It's important for you to know. So I started to look at, there's got to be a better way. So I stepped back and I look at my journey. I look at what I've learned. I look at what's working with other people. And I started to realize weekly therapy is not the answer. There's something better. And what I've spent the past 8 months putting together is Rise Week, Legion, and the Daily Rise. Now, I know all the potential struggles you could face. Though these things that you're going to learn about compensate for all those. If you want your marriage to get back on track, you want to rebuild the safety, the trust, the connection, get the sex back on the table again, make that work. You want to feel good. Now, it's important for you to know, I was every day battling not to go act out. I remember about 4 years in, I did some work and I told the therapist, that is the first time I've ever not felt desirous of having sex or looking at porn. I was constantly aroused. That was hell every single day, fighting, not being able to act out. I don't feel that way anymore. I don't manage triggers. I'm not constantly lusting. I'm not managing my anger or anxiety. I don't feel those things anymore. It took me a long time to get there, but what's cool is it doesn't have to take you a long time. Or for those of you that have been going a long time, it can be shorter now. You can get there quickly. This is the most recent advances in neuroscience, our understanding of quantum physics, epigenetics, the way that emotions work, the way that attachment and relationships work. My job is to know not what the problem is and how it happened. My job is to help you get where you want to go. And that's where I've put all my efforts. Knowing where you want to go, which is happy life, happy marriage, feeling good, and how to get there quickly. So in a minute, I'm going to introduce you to Rise Week, Legion, and the Daily Rise. I'm excited for you. It's so good to take back your life and come out of that insanity. The pain that you feel, I felt it. There was times where I really contemplated suicide just to end the misery. But I was too aware of the pain that would be for those that I loved. So I just sat in that hell for a while going, why can't I figure this out? Why can't I figure this out? I kept trying, and I got to where I wanted to go. It doesn't have to take 8 years. We get the right things in place. 6 months from now, and I'm talking to you guys who are in the depths, 6 months from now, it can be much better. A year from now, you'll be happy, and so is she. So So keep watching.